Well, so this is just a relatively quick video, in theory. Just kind of going over something that I touched upon towards the end of the video that I uploaded earlier on today. And that was in regards to the Eco School Scotland programme. Admittedly something that I've never actually heard of before. But surprise, surprise, as it says here that it's part of the Learning for Sustainability programme, something I am very familiar with. It's saying here, of course, that the programme supports young people to learn and engage with climate change from nursery age to adulthood, with content on transport engaging children in an understanding of how people and goods make their way to school and how more sustainable choices can be made. Now, as I said in the video earlier on the day, I've got no issue with, promoting the concept of walking to school or cycling to school if they are within a decent radius, distance-wise, as opposed to getting a lift to school from a parent. But I think to conflate that with climate change, or the climate crisis, as they like to call it these days, is a bit fucking sinister for a multitude of reasons that I'm not going to bore people that follow my channel with, because I'd be preaching to the choir in that respect. But I just find it fascinating how they seem to be getting away with completely and utterly indoctrinating our youth, because climate change, as they call it, the climate crisis, the climate emergency, it's a political issue. Just the same way that COVID, for the most part, has become, if not always was, a political issue. Climate change most certainly is, or the climate crisis, because the climate is always changing, always has changed, and will always continue to change. But the solutions that these people claim need to take place and occur within society are inherently political, pushing us all in the one direction towards a political goal and an agenda. But anyway, a progressive utopia, quote unquote. And then you take into consideration, of course, things along the lines of climate justice. Nicola Thinlips calls it a feminist issue. You've got BAMEs and other social justice activists talking about climate justice being about social justice and gender justice, etc., etc. Some even going as far as to talk about immigrant justice or migration justice. It's a means to move away from capitalism and push towards a socially just, equitable society, etc., etc., etc. It's just an excuse to transform our societies for the worst under the guise masquerading as a means to ensure that the planet doesn't burn to a cinder. But anyway, as I said, I'm not going to make this video too long, but I was having a wee scroll through the website in question, right? And it's what you expect, really. It's not anything I haven't really seen before, but kind of gave me an idea to kind of play a few clips towards the end of the video, just to give it a wee insight as to what the fuck's happening here. Because not only are they brainwashing children, and if you think about it, when they're talking about nursery children here, in order for them to preach to these children about solutions, etc., sustainable solutions, sustainable outcomes, and all the rest of that bullshit that comes along with it, they first and foremost have to tell these children that the climate, or the planet I should say, is hanging by a thread. So if we don't get things right within the next decade or so, we're all going to burn to a cinder. So you're putting the fear of God into children. But then, of course, the false empowerment bullshit comes into effect, because they're also being taught about their rights in Scotland. UNCRC rhetoric. The right to be listened to and taken seriously and taken into consideration when it comes to policy and decision making. They need to have a seat at the table. So when you're teaching all these children, which I'll come on to in terms of the clips, when you're teaching all these children from a very, very young age all there is to know about climate change and the climate crisis, they come away with solutions or potential solutions. Then the government, etc., get to pretend, why didn't I think of that? Oh, of course, we'll take your idea on board. Problem, reaction, solution in many respects. A classic example of that would be the climate assembly that took place, with all the recommendations that they put forth, the government accepted. But alongside the climate assembly, there was also the Scottish Children's Parliament, who also simultaneously put forward recommendations, and they were also accepted for the most part, if not in full, almost in full. We're talking about children here, putting forth recommendations to our government. And the government went, we'll take everything you said on board. Where would these children get the ideas from in order to then produce recommendations for the government to consider? The education. Learning for sustainability. And it's such a fucking cop-out because they get to justify brainwashing the youth by saying that it's imperative they know about what's happening in order for them to prepare and be able to make decisions, etc. Because it's imperative. Because the world's hanging by a knife edge. Oh, I'm on a knife edge. It's fucking clever, really. I mean, look at this. Look at the ages of some of these kids. This is from the Children's Parliament report, right? So our government pretended to give a fuck what these children had to say on the matter of climate change. These children are growing up thinking that there's a climate crisis. These children are growing up and embracing learning for sustainability. These children are growing up with a false sense of empowerment. Maybe not entitlement, that's the wrong wording. You know, they're taught all about their rights from a very young age. And I know the UNCRC hasn't been implemented as of yet into law, but it's coming. Doesn't stop them though. Look at this shit, right? The climate emergency is a human rights issue. Any solution or plan or action to tackle the climate emergency in Scotland must respond to the needs, the rights of everyone living here, and this means listening to the diversity of views and lived experiences of Scotland's citizens. This includes children who have the right to have their views heard and taken seriously as outlined in Article 12 of the UNCRC. So they're getting taught from a very young age that they have the right to be taken seriously, have their views heard, etc., etc. But then they're also simultaneously being taught all about climate change and the solutions. They're provided and presented with the solutions. They don't think of these things themselves. Oh, wow. Anyway, but wait till you see this. I'm not even on the website yet. I'm still going for this shit. But to capture the diversity of children's views and experiences and to echo the process of the Climate Assembly, the Children's Parliament worked with just over 100 children aged 7 to 14 across Scotland from 10 local authorities, represented urban and rural communities, a mix of income and ethnicity groups, and with a gender balance. Many children had not previously engaged in climate activism until their involvement in the Climate Assembly. They have therefore been on a significant learning journey over the past 6 months to understand climate change, its impact, and what Scotland needs to do to further mitigate and adapt in a fair, just way. Fucking what the It's actually repulsive. Honest to God, like. It says here that Scotland's Climate Assembly, like the Climate Assembly, an investigation with children was facilitated digitally and remotely due to COVID-19. We took a hope-based, solution-focused approach underpinned by a commitment to upholding and further realising children's human rights, with the support of climate anxiety experts to ensure children felt valued, supported and empowered in this process. At what point do we start to call this what it is? Grooming. I'm not just talking about this report, I'm talking about it in general, across the board. It's fucking grooming. You know? Look at the ages of these kids. It fucking annoys me. It really fucking annoys me how disgusting this is. I don't know why I get so worked up over it, but it really is just something that always has bothered me since I've been made aware of it. You know? It's just, meet the investigators. The boy's 10. A 10-year-old, 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 an 11-year-old, 12-year-old. Wow. Understanding the climate emergency. And this is kid format, yeah. Wow, what the fuck. It's just, icebergs are falling and melting and penguins are dying and polar bears are dying. Polar bears are not dying. And where some icebergs, if you will, are falling and melting, more grow behind it. So I presume what's happening here is children are being shown videos in class of parts of icebergs falling into the ocean below it or the sea below it. And the shit about polar bears, fuck's sake. A 12-year-old says, to me, climate change means that the planet is getting dangerously warm and it's affecting the people and the animals who live on Earth. Oh, wow. Anyway, I am digressing to some extent. Describe how you feel about climate change in 3 words. And the children responded with words such as terrible, bad, frightened. You know? Worried, concerned, unhappy, unsure, angry, desperate. I feel upset. Help the planet, bad for kids. Whilst many responses emphasise the concern, worry and frustration children feel about the climate emergency, it is important to highlight that children also describe feeling hopeful and determined to be part of the solutions. The solutions with their false sense of fucking empowerment. Anyway, I won't go any further onto that because I don't want to be getting too long. But you know, this website, it's just ridiculous. Bullshit, as per usual. You know, eco schools, right, about us. I don't really know what else to say that I haven't said before. Eco Schools is the largest sustainable schools program in the world, with 19.5 million children, young people and educators engaged worldwide in 67 different countries. Operated internationally by the Foundation for Environmental Education and delivered by Keep Scotland Beautiful in Scotland. Eco Schools has common structural features across all operating countries. The 7 elements makes up the core of all Eco Schools programs across the world. Okay. And you got shit like this. During your green flag application, you choose to work on 3 of the 10 topics. Litter and waste is our mandatory topic, and all applications must include at least 3 actions per topic. The other topics that can be selected are biodiversity, climate action, energy, food and the environment, global citizenship, of course, that's got to be there, as well as climate action, health and well-being, school, grounds, transport and water. Oh, fucking hell, man. Where was it? Let's see what global citizenship says. The global citizenship topic is where you can include work on other initiatives like fair trade schools and rights respecting schools in your eco schools journey. You might also like to tell us about any fundraising projects for charities, blah blah blah. Children's rights activities, coronavirus, dairy activity. Oh wow. Education Scotland, community resilience. Global Citizenship Magazine. Oh wow. This website's really going all out, eh? Oh, fuck. What else does it say here? New Eco Schools Climate Action topic launched. The schools, Scotland's Climate Week, in response to global calls for a greater focus on climate change education, we have launched a new climate action topic for the International Eco Schools programme. The topic will support children and young people to understand the role we all have to play in a transition to becoming a net zero nation. Now, where are they getting this from? Where are they getting the term net zero nation from? Well, they're getting that from Sustainable Development Goals, really, are they not? We're talking about specifically climate change. So what's happening here is children are being brainwashed to embrace the Agenda 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. But it's all disguised, it's all masqueraded under the front of tackling climate change. They need to understand the role that they will play in the future. It's imperative for the sake of the fucking planet. Wow. Oh, wow, man. Climate justice news, eh? I don't even know what the fuck else to say. Dear world leaders, this is from 2021. But, Sustainable Development Goals, of course. But throughout the 2 weeks of COP26, we are amplifying the voices of young people from across Scotland, showcasing their messages to world leaders on our social media platforms or channels. The messages were sent to us as part of our Dear World Leaders project, where we invited peoples of all ages to address delegates at COP26 describing what they had hoped the planet would be like when they become adults. And why would they have anything to say on a matter such as this unless they were taught all about it in school? But they are, of course they are, aren't they? It's fucking grooming. It's unbelievable. They have got children in the palm of their hands. The next generation that are in school just now are going to come out the other side of this completely and utterly brainwashed into the progressive into the progressive way of thinking. Because along with the climate change bullshit, the Learning for Sustainability project, that entails a plethora of things that do not just include climate change. Fucking unreal. I don't even know, eh?
It's my future, and I don't want my future to be affected by climate change.
A climate youth ambassador. False sense of empowerment yet again. These children think that their future's fucked unless progressive political transformative change occurs. Where we have to move away from capitalism and embrace equity and social justice and gender justice and climate justice. Ditch cars, ditch meat. Live sustainably.
And
embrace climate refugees en masse. All the while being taught that we are inherently to blame for it all. Due to colonialism and the Industrial Revolution. Due to that pesky carbon.
Devastating things that are happening, and I really want to make a difference because I believe that everyone, just by small changes, can make a difference. And climate change matters because, well, it's devastating the world and destroying habitats.
I absolutely agree. It's everyone's future and we've only got one planet, and the fact that we're destroying it is just horrible, and there needs to be more awareness about what people can do to make a difference, because everyone can make a difference and everyone should make a difference.
Children's Parliament, Marine Conservation Society and Nature Scot supported the young people to deliver the declaration. The declarations by the young people focus on 9 key areas. Youth engagement.
We ask that young people have defined opportunities to engage with decision makers over the climate emergency.
We want equitable, inclusive opportunities to be provided.
We want equitable, inclusive opportunities to be provided. So that, I mean, even the fucking words, the buzzwords.
Decision makers to ensure all young people can engage and have their say on our climate future.
We would like decision makers to follow up with young people who have been consulted so that young people are aware of the impact of their engagement.
We want opportunities for young people to access
education.
Education and support around how they can engage with climate action. And are empowered to act upon it.
See, that's what they want. And they have the right to be listened to, taken seriously, and have their views respected. So naturally, teachers ain't going to stand in their way. In fact, the teachers will encourage them to go out and protest, and then the government and local authorities will bend over backwards and pretend, well, we better take you seriously because it's your right to be listened to. All the while, these children have probably come away with the fucking solutions, potential solutions, recommendations that they had their fingers crossed for in the first place. When they initially presented these children with the education in the first place, the agenda, the long-term outcome that they all hoped for was that they would inevitably end up buying into the bullshit they're being presented with and come up with solutions. But the fucking con job that's going on here is the kids think that they're coming up with solutions that they've thought about all by themselves with this false sense of fucking empowerment. They're being groomed to embrace a political ideology, a political fucking game, as far as I'm concerned. The COOF was one thing, but this climate bullshit. I mean, they're one and the same. I know that. Essentially, all of the things that have taken place for the last few years, it's just now starting to manifest into the green agenda as opposed to the COVID agenda. But it's the same thing. It's all about sustainability. And it's so open. They're so brazen about it. It's fucking remarkable. Where's the outrage at this shit?
We ask that decision makers commit to implementing structured spaces to facilitate youth inclusion in climate policy making.
Youth inclusion in climate policy making. I mean, what's that expression? Children should be seen and not heard. I mean, when I was in primary school, the last thing I would ever have considered, ever have wanted to consider, I don't even think the thought would ever have crossed my mind, it would have never have had to, would be to engage in fucking politics. You know what I mean? Fuck's sake.
Okay. And to have regard to the good practice seen in the Council of Europe's youth sector's co-management model.
children's rights.
Children and young people should have a say in how decisions are being made by being included in this process on a local, council and national political level.
Children and young people should have access to climate groups which have the funding, equipment and tools so that everyone's voices are heard and activities are meaningful and impactful.
We should be educated about living in an eco-friendly and sustainable lifestyle and organising.
We should be educated because they keep being taught that there isn't enough education. More needs to be done. And these kids keep coming away with things along the line. I've lost count how many times I've heard this. They come away with bullshit like, we need climate-friendly education to be taught about sustainable lifestyle. You name it, they'll say it. And you hear the local authorities, the activists and the thin lips of the world all going, oh, well, we have to take you seriously because it's your human right, your child right. You know? We'll get right on that. Yes.
Organisations and the government should make it affordable, fair and accessible to young people and those living in poverty.
Education and jobs.
Children and young people should have access to climate education in school as part of the curriculum and embedded in all subjects.
It's fucking unreal.
We learned a lot and came up with lots of great ideas. We also became really good friends and laughed and danced a lot. After 5 months of working together and hearing from the wider group of 100 children, we are ready to share what we think needs to happen in Scotland to tackle the climate emergency.
First, we need to change how we eat and where we get our food from.
Oh my god. Oh wow, where did the photo go? Like, come on. Jesus, wait a second. Veggie burger.
Scotland to tackle the climate emergency. We put all the ideas to votes, so these are our most popular calls to action.
First, we need to change how we eat and where we get our food from. We all need to have a better education about environmentally friendly diets and how to reduce food waste.
We need to see much more food made and sold locally in Scotland. This means helping environmentally friendly Scottish businesses, farmers and butchers. We need to see more plant-based, animal-free options in places where children and adults learn and work.
And just remember what learning for sustainability entails, because it's not just about fucking climate change or climate justice. It's about social justice. It's about equality and fairness. It's about equity, you know? About human rights, children's rights, identity and heritage. I believe when I see it. Children's rights, yeah. Embedded in the curriculum, aka, you know, this has to be taught. Global citizenship. Wow. Tackling climate change. Yeah. Engaging with democracy. aka grooming. Embrace progressivism. It's just unreal, you know. Learning for sustainability is an approach to life and learning which enables learners, educators, schools and their wider communities to build a socially just, sustainable and equitable society. This is happening right in front of your fucking face. I don't really know what else to say at this point. They just hide it. It's masqueraded as imperative to stop the planet burning to a cinder. And it's all shit. Anyway, peace.